Before I go any further, let me introduce you to our crew today, though. We have a real fine crew working. Going to serve you well, I have no doubt. Starting with our bartender upstairs here. This is Mr. Chris. Chris, everybody wave at Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Everybody loves Chris. He does a great job. We've got Alex over here who will be doing some serving today with the sandwiches and everything. This beautiful lady in the blue shirt right here. Of course, they're all wearing blue shirts, but this beautiful lady, that is my wife. When I first started singing on the boat, she would come with me a lot, you know, just to kind of hang out and hear me sing and stuff like that. She's so personable with people. They finally offered her a job on the boat, so now she's working with me. You know, that's not too bad, not too shabby. My wife and I have been married next month 42 years.
Congratulations!
We have 5 children and 8 grandkids.
I thought this was
Lord's
the
been
boat.
good to us. We're blessed. Then downstairs, also doing some serving and also tending bar downstairs will be Crystal. And I want to wave at Crystal here. We have a little camera right here, guys, so folks downstairs can see me. How are y'all doing downstairs? We want to welcome you guys as well. And I will take some requests from you guys if you have a song you'd like to hear. By the way, after lunch, if you guys want to roam around the boat, you're welcome to. We have 3 decks that you can go check it out outside. You know, it's such a nice day. Is everybody enjoying this weather we're having here? It's almost like fall, you know. We always look forward to these days. No humidity. But we have 2 in the front, 1 on each level, and then 1 in the back where you can go outside and enjoy the day. And you'll still be able to hear the music and all the narration and everything as well. So I believe that's all. I'm just going to quickly tell y'all a little bit about where we're leaving from here. This, of course, is called Barefoot Marina. Most of y'all probably know that already. This is where all these beautiful boats are parked. The ones on the outside, they're actually probably heading somewhere. As a matter of fact, we were talking, we left the dock, Captain and I were talking to a couple there. They're from, he's from Galveston, Texas. So he's actually driven his boat all around, you know. This intercoastal waterway goes all the way from Key West, Florida up to Norfolk, Virginia. So really? I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But this guy's traveling the waterway right now. Then over here to our right, this way on the port side of the boat is that is called Barefoot Landing. Have any of y'all been out to Barefoot Landing since you've been in town? I would recommend you check it out. There's a lot of restaurants there. Lulu's, the one with the real colorful teal roof, that's actually owned by Jimmy Buffett and his sister Lucy. Of course, Jimmy Buffett is no longer with us, but his family still owns that restaurant, including his sister Lucy. Then there's Greg Norman's restaurant is here, and great steaks and chops and things like that. Seafood, a lot of great seafood places. The House of Blues is over there, the Alabama Music Theater, a lot of fun stuff to do for kids. So yeah, check out Barefoot Landing. To get there, you go across that bridge. Maybe you guys can see that bridge way in the background there. That is called a swing bridge. There's only 2 of those in the whole state of South Carolina. What it does is real unique. If there's a boat going by that has a mast like a sailboat, obviously it's going to be too tall to fit underneath that little bridge, so they have to actually turn the bridge in on itself. Right in the middle there, you'll see some concrete pylons. There's a big gear there, big gear that turns that bridge in on itself so that it's actually parallel to the waterway to let the boats go by. Then it swings back into place and locks in. Then they start the traffic again. So yeah, we've been stuck by that thing a couple of times, and since we've been singing here on the boat. It's called a swing bridge. Like I said, there's only 2 of those in the state of South Carolina. It's very unique. As we go back, when we come back from our turnaround, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So we're actually on what is called the Intercoastal Waterway today. How many of y'all have ever heard of the Intercoastal Waterway? Anybody know what that is? Oh, we have a lot of folks that know something about it. This is not a river. For those of you that have never heard of it, it's not a river. It's completely man-made. And it begins, like I said earlier, it starts around the Portsmouth area of Virginia, which is in the Norfolk Tidewater area, right at the mouth of Chesapeake. And it actually goes all the way to Key West, Florida. So now, if the captain has a mind to do so today, we could end up in Key West, Florida. I think I'm going to tell him to keep going. How about y'all? Would y'all like that? That'd be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have a margarita down in Margaritaville now. The real Margaritaville.
Do it.
So anyway, it's about 1,600 miles in length. And the water itself is called brackish water. Does anybody know what that term means?
Dirty water.
It's a mixture, yeah, he knows. It's a mixture of salt water and fresh water. The reason for that being we are connected to the Atlantic Ocean, which by the way is only about maybe a mile and a half that away on the port side. That is the left side as well. So yeah, the water, the ocean, we're very close to it, but we do connect to the ocean in a lot of different places. So the water from the Atlantic Ocean has, through the years, mixed in with the fresh water that was here to create that brackish water. That's the term for it. It doesn't seem to bother any of the critters and animals though, because if we keep our eyes open today, we just might see some critters in the water. We, during the summer, we've seen alligators, we've seen snakes, we've seen lots of turtles, we've seen deer in the water. As a matter of fact, about 6 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we saw a deer jump in the water and swim all the way across to the other side. We were heading towards him, so Captain had to really back off and let that deer finish swimming across. And then about 3 weeks ago, we were coming back from our turnaround. 3 dolphins were swimming alongside of us. So you'll see those guys. They make their way in from the Atlantic to find fish or whatever they're looking for, and they swam all the way back with us. We kind of kept it slow. But yeah, and there's a place coming up where there's a lot of. We usually see an alligator in the summer. It might be a little cool for them today. I don't know. We'll keep an eyes open for them. But there's a lot of fish in these waters too. We do actually have a high tide and a low tide on the waterway. This, as you can see, we're extremely high tide. Ever since that tropical storm came through, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had a storm come through called Debbie. And all the water upstream, the tributaries and stuff upstream have filtered into this waterway. So yeah, you can see we're almost at the very top of that wall. Normally it's nowhere near that high. So we're at a real high level of water here on the waterway. But yeah, the tide differential can go, usually averages about 4 feet. So yeah, we have a high tide and a low tide. Once again, the reason for that is because we are connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Here's that little broken down dock. A lot of times on a really hot summer day, off to the starboard side of the boat there's a little broken dock, and we have about a 6-foot alligator that really loves to lay there. And I do not see him today, because like I say, we might see I think I see a few turtles out there. But he loves that spot on a really hot day just to lay there and wave at us as we go by. He does that a lot. We also see some wildlife over here, golfers we call them. There's several golf courses in the Myrtle Beach area. A real quick history of the Intercoastal Waterway. I'll tell you a little bit about it now, where it all originated. You guys, is anybody here like history, U.S. history? That was my favorite subject in school. You could keep algebra and trigonometry and calculus. U.S. history, I enjoyed history. So basically around 1780, right after the Revolutionary War, the leaders of our country had a great idea to come up with a way to get supplies up and down the east coast of the United States. At that time there was only 13 states, all on the eastern seaboard. So they thought, in case of a war or natural disaster, whatever, we need a way to get supplies up and down the coastline without going into the Atlantic Ocean. So who can tell me why they didn't really want to go out into the Atlantic Ocean back in the 1780s?
Scary.
British were still hanging out. That's right. The British Navy at that time was the most powerful Navy in the world. Also, we had this little thing called pirates. You might have heard of those guys. If you ever saw Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. By the way, Johnny Depp has a house here that we're going to be passing when we get a little further up. I'll point it out to you. Johnny Depp has a house in Myrtle Beach. Can y'all imagine that? Anyway, yeah, there was a lot of piracy going on. If they saw a ship laden with cargo, they would, obviously try to steal that cargo. It was not a good scene. The U.S. Coast Guard wasn't a really big deal at that time. So they came up with a design and everything. They figured out a way to connect rivers and streams and swamps, marshes, creeks, anything that has a little bit of fresh water in it. They figured out a way to dredge out canals to connect all these different waterways that were already existing to create one continuous waterway. And it's 1,600 miles, the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway. There's also one that goes around the Gulf Coast called the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway. That starts in Florida and goes all the way over to Galveston, Texas. So there's actually 2 intercoastal waterways. The one we're on is the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway here. This was the original waterway that was built. And this section, it took about 150 years for them to complete this thing. They didn't actually start construction until the mid 1800s in certain sections, but this section that we're on today, the South Carolina portion, was built between 1932 and 1936. So it's almost 90 years old since it was all finished. Part of a thing called the New Deal. If you remember reading in history about the New Deal, it's FDR. We were in a real bad depression years. Hey, it was a public works program, a lot of public works going on, and so they finished the intercoastal waterway at that point. And again, today it's not really used so much for supplies. It's pretty safe out there with the U.S. Coast Guard. So now it's mainly used for recreational uses and purposes as well. This area that we're passing right here, this is still part of the Barefoot Resort. But the Barefoot, I don't know why I was thinking of Buffalo. Barefoot Resort, which is a huge area, all the Barefoot Marina and the landing and all that, it's all part of this big resort called Barefoot.
Big size for sale.
So we're going to be passing through another area called Grand Dunes soon, and then when we get there, I'll tell you about some of the celebrities that have actually bought homes there. All right. Now, people sometimes will ask me how deep the water is. People are curious. They want to know how deep the water is, and it averages 9 to on a normal day, maybe a little deeper today because we're at a real high level. But normal day, it averages 9 to 12 feet deep, depending on where the tide is in the tide schedule. If it gets below about 9 feet deep, they come along with a big dredge to keep that bottom open for the larger boats to come through. Does anybody have any questions about the waterway today? You got any questions for me? No? You got it all figured out, don't you, girl? Well, I'm going to do a little singing for y'all today. Again, let me know if you have any favorites. Start off with something by the Eagles. This is, this will tell you what kind of music I do. I do a lot of stuff, classic oldies is basically what I do. So this is one of the greatest bands of all time. Glenn Frey, Don Henley,